Hi, everyone, and happy Earth Day. 50 years of celebrating the Earth and promoting environmental activism today. So, it's unfortunate that we all can't get out and do something for the environment today. But if you check out lots of the websites today that have been talking about Earth Day, you can see that the impact of us all staying home has really made a big difference for the quality of the air and the water around the world, especially in places where pollution controls, like India, that didn't benefit from all the environmental activism that we've seen here in North America, has resulted in a lot of air pollution. Well, now that nobody's driving around, you can see the Himalayan mountains from many cities that you just couldn't do that a few weeks ago. So I'm just going to roll through the what do you know about Canada's fish resources? So turns out there was a glitch. You know, this happens every once in a while with these online quizzes. So I'll be correcting this later on today. But the one question was being marked incorrectly. So my apologies about that. So let's see here. Looks like everybody realized that the three main fisheries were these ones, and that the Arctic fishery, it's more of a subsistence fishery for the Inuit people of the north. There isn't a real commercial fishery where they're collecting fish to sell for export. Um, the codfish was obviously associated with the East Coast fishery, and the inland fishery is the one that's at risk from things like the goby fish. If the Asian carp were ever to get in, it would be devastating to that fishery. So invasive species are something that we're very concerned about in the Great Lakes. Cod moratorium means that you can't catch that variety of fish. And this one tricked a lot of people. Improvements in fish technology led to better management of the East Coast fishery. As we know, better technology meant that we could go fish 24/7, 365 days a year, and as a result, that resulted in the collapse of the fishery. So, with sonar and better ships and so on, we would just go out and use that technology to devastate the fishery. So that didn't have the desired results. Canadian laws only extend, yeah, it's a 200 nautical mile or 370-kilometer limit. Beyond that, international waters, wild, wild west. Nobody's really in charge of the waters after that. And so what we find is that the Grand Banks, which is a really good fishing area off of Newfoundland, the nose and the tail of it extend just a little bit out into international waters, and our codfish keep moving back and forth into international waters and back into Canada. And the international fishermen who have no restrictions keep catching them, and that's part of our problem for them not recovering. Which of the following fishing techniques? Drag nets are devastating. They go down to the bottom of the ocean and then drag along and pull up the coral and the eggs and you name it. Upwards of 90% of what a dragnet brings up to the surface is not what they're looking for. And because you've taken it from the bottom of the ocean all the way up, 300 feet up to the surface, that big pressure change and then throwing it out on the deck usually kills whatever the species is. So even if they throw it back into the ocean, they don't usually last. Migrating salmon are so difficult to manage. There's all these things that you got to be aware of and deal with. Believe it or not, the codfish were easier to manage because they tended to stay, in one type of environment and not migrate that much. Whereas the salmon, it's a nightmare trying to figure out a deal with the Americans and so on. Everybody got that term right, so we won't go into that. Aquaculture, so that's basically fish farming. You put a big cage in the river, and you grow the fish by feeding them. Every once in a while, though, you'll have like a flood or a big storm, and some of the fish will escape. And fish aren't used to being in those compact environments, so they get a lot of diseases that they normally wouldn't get in the wild, and they get things like sea lice and so on. So anyway, they escape and off they go, and now infect the wild population of salmon. So there's been a restriction on the amount of fish farms that are allowed to be running in BC, as we try and figure out whether we need to change the way that we fish farm. This is the mistake right here. So it says fish ladders are needed to help migrating cod avoid hydroelectric dams. That's true. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why that got marked as false. Industrial pollution has gotten a lot better. If you ever remember the Lorax, the really old version of it, there's a little punchline in there. It's like, well, at least it's not as bad as up in Lake Erie, because it used to catch on fire. That's how bad Lake Erie was. There's so much industrial pollution going into Lake Erie that the American side, by Cleveland, one day it caught on fire, and crazy, crazy stuff. And it looks like everybody gets this idea of the tragedy of the commons, that this great resource and everybody could share it, and as long as everybody's not exploiting the resource, everybody's okay. But everybody has a financial incentive to take a little more than they should, and as a result, some people will do that, and temporarily they do better, but as a result, the whole resource collapses. So this is the big issue. So today, I've got a survey that I'd really like everyone to complete, and it's right. I didn't put it in here, so I'll put it in the section here. I'd like to complete the survey. The Dropbox. I wanted to make sure that everybody handed or did the quiz, and so the Dropbox wasn't going to allow you to put anything in it unless you had completed the quiz. But everybody's done that now, so that's great news. What I'm going to do is post an assignment today that you're going to have the rest of this week and next week to work on. It's sort of wrapping up this natural resources unit. You're going to take a look at the oil sands, and where is it here? Recent. So there's this chart. It's called the 4Ws chart of geography. So what's there, why is it there, why care, and what's next. So essentially, you're going to learn about where the oil sands are located. There's a map here if you click on it. The map is layered. All right, so you can see here there's there's all the layers over here. I'm just going to turn some of this off. If you zoom in here, these are all the oil wells in Alberta. And some of them are oil sands type, others are just regular oil wells, but it gives you an idea of whereabouts the oil sands are located. So you're supposed to describe where it is. So you talk about which provinces, whereabouts within the province the oil sands are located, but then you can switch it over and take a look at the different physiographic regions. What physiographic region is it in, and then also the First Nations people. Is there a treaty that is is there a treaty in effect for that area? So, for instance, down here in Niagara, if I were to zoom in on Niagara, I could click on here. You can see that there are two different treaties. We've got this one treaty here. It's where's the name of it? It's telling you who the group. It's with the Mississauga, but I don't think it has the name of the treaty. Anyway, you can see that there's two different treaties here that settle this area, which means that there's an agreement between the government and the First Nations people on how that land is to be managed. And the First Nations people have particular rights, and typically it's hunting and fishing rights that go along with those treaties. And we have to remember that that's a law, and we need to respect that. And so, if there's a treaty for the oil sands, we want to make sure that we respect that. So I also have a couple of videos up here. I would suggest starting off with watching a couple of these videos. And from watching the videos, you'll be able to complete the chart. I don't mind if you use point form, but please make sure that it's more than one word, like bad, pollution. It needs to be more detailed than that. If it's pollution, is it water pollution or is it air pollution? Is it what's the chemical that's getting into the water, and so on. There's a Curio video that's really good. David Suzuki, probably the best of all these videos. And what you can do is just simply go into the website here, and where are we? External tools, go into Curio, and here's the name of the film. So you just copy that and throw it into, whoops, I got that open. And there it is. So it's about 40 minutes, but that's with the credits and all that sort of stuff. So once you've completed the chart, all right, you're going to look at all the different aspects of the oil sands. I want you to write a reflection piece, and it's going to be 3 paragraphs. Start off with an introduction. Tell me whether you think expanding the oil sands is a good idea, uh, or whether you think that we need to shrink the size of the oil sands. And they, in that introduction, give me sort of the broad ideas of why you support that particular position. Please don't hedge your bet. Don't say it's both good and bad, and not really come up with a decision. I want you to clearly take one side, okay? And then the next paragraph is going to be going through your main supporting ideas. Give me some specific statistics, facts, maybe a quote or two that support your opinion, and then make a conclusion. And then think about the big picture. If we, follow through with your advice, what sort of impact does that have on the world as a whole, or the greater Canada as a whole? So um, you can start that this week, and that's all I've got for you for next week. This is going to be a rather large evaluation piece, so please try to do a good job with it. And if you have any questions, like usual, send me an email. All right, have a great day, and oh, don't forget. I will do a open discussion. I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to give you some time to look over things. So I will do an open discussion 11 o'clock on Friday. All right. So if you want to join that, you'll see the link that's posted in the announcements. It's best if you have a microphone. If you don't have a microphone, so be it. But and test out that microphone. It's a lot easier than typing the questions.